Welcome back to the Blue Rush Podcast. This is the New York Post podcast featuring everything Giants related. Our regular host, Brandon London, is not available this week. He is out of the country, and there is no truth to the rumor he left the country because of the way the Giants are playing. He's just on an assignment, and he will hopefully be back next week to bring you another podcast with me. Now, any of you listeners who have followed the Blue Rush podcast know that this is not a solo act. And for many years, we had the one and only Lawrence Tynes, Giants place kicker, two-time Super Bowl winner, famous for kicks in Green Bay and famous for a kick in San Francisco. He has been kind and generous enough to join us again this week for a special guest appearance on the Blue Rush podcast. So let us welcome in Lawrence Tynes, who has quite an array in his background right there. Wow, look at all that stuff back there, Lawrence.
Paul, it is great to see you, and thanks for the intro. It's been a while, but I'm not going to lie, I have not missed the podcast world, so it's been a nice break.
Well, I'm not sure. I think I might have to take that. You don't miss the podcast world in general?
Podcast world, not the podcast co-hosts and people that I worked with, just the podcast topics, if you will, that you guys have been, talking about since I left a couple of years back, and seems like it's the same old story, but I'm sure we'll get into it.
Yes. Now, we used to do this every week, right? So every week we would talk,
twice a week,
win a game. Twice a week, often. Yes, we did it right. A follow-up to the game before, and then a look ahead, right? So very often the follow to the game was, okay, they lost, let's break it down. And then we would go, a few weekdays later and talk about the game coming up and try to figure out a way to explain why they would win. And sometimes we would succeed or fail, and then often they would lose. So yes, it's been a rough stretch. So now we have not talked, right? We've exchanged a few texts here and there. Yeah. We have not talked this season about the Giants. So from afar, which you are, close in heart, but afar other ways, give me what you have seen so far this season about the Giants.
Oof. Let's get right into it. I do watch loyally. Look, I owe a lot to this organization just as a person for what they've done for me and my family, and have a lot of great friends from the organization still and teammates that I love and care about. So I still watch almost too closely on Sundays. What have I seen? Look, let's start with the positives. Jaxson Dart, right? I think you found a franchise quarterback, a kid with charisma, leadership qualities, toughness, a little Phil Simms, a little Eli Manning, just a little bit of everything, right? He's got all the intangibles to be great. Cam Scattaboo, excuse me, Burns. I love Wan'Dale Robinson. He plays his heart out. Andrew Thomas has been great. I'm not going to go through the full roster, but the positives are those things. You've got some young pieces. The negatives, and the list is way, way longer than the positives, is here we are in year 4 of Schoen and Daboll. And outside of the first year where we had Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, McKinney, Love, and Williams, who are no longer on this football team and having great success elsewhere, that's been their best season. So I think, you could go a lot of different ways on what's wrong with this team. But I think the only thing you can really point to is coaching. So for me, just looking at it from afar, it's the coaching, and then some depth, right? We've had a lot of guys get hurt, but the drop off is immense. And I think they were trying to clean that up 3 years ago. Typically in year 4, your team is better. I mean, if you don't have to look far for examples, Mike Vrabel is doing it in New England with a young quarterback and a young roster. So look, I don't know what's going to happen. I think there's some people in trouble in that building just based on job security. But that's what I see. And then obviously the big topic recently in the last couple of weeks has been the lack of effort on defense. And you see it. Look, I'm a former player. I see it. I'm not here to call out individual guys. That's been done already, and it's being done every day by content creators and people that love the Giants, but that is a non-negotiable. Effort is free. So it is disheartening to watch people wear the uniform that you love so much play with no effort. That really pisses me off. So that's my state of the Giants in 25.
Yeah, it's not a pretty state. A couple of things there to pick over a little bit. First of all, zooming out a little bit, you are part of a generation of Giants, right? Who that era of Giants where you had great success. Not every year, but you ended up winning 2 Super Bowls. You had stability as the head coach, all those things. So your group, right? You're still in contact with a bunch of players, I assume. From your era. Is there a general, I see some guys, they don't want to talk about it. Sometimes I reach out to some, of your teammates and they're like, well, if it's about talking about the team right now, I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? And I think it's
Yeah.
because they don't want to say, it's not like they don't want to talk to me or talk about the Giants. They don't want to come out and say things that are harmful and hurtful to them. They don't want to say what you said, I see a lack of effort. They don't want to say, I don't know
Yeah.
if it's the coach or it's the player. So I mean, in your group, in your teammate group, is there a lot of that? It's just a lot of like, what the hell has happened?
Yeah.
This is not good anymore. That kind of thing. Do you discuss that with your former
Yeah.
teammates?
We do. Yeah, we absolutely do privately.
Yeah.
I can understand where guys don't want to go public with some of their sentiments on the team. Um, I really don't think it's harmful, in my opinion. If the Giants feel a certain way, then they feel a certain way about it. But the reality of it is, we just want what's best for the organization. It's just like not parenting your child. You have to discipline them. Let's discipline our team, through the public eye. Like there's been a lack of effort. I don't think anyone can say that's wrong. You can live with the results on offense because they're just not good enough. They're playing hard, but you can't say that about the defense. And so you could live with those results over there as well if you saw effort, just like in anything in life, right? If we all gave 100% effort, we can all live with the result. That is not the case over there on that side of the ball. And again, that would have been policed internally by our team, right? The coaches can only do so much, but you can bet your ass that Justin Tuck and Osi Umenyiora and Antonio Pierce and Chase Blackburn and Dave Tollefson and just the list goes on. Corey Webster, that Antrell Roll, that was never, ever, ever going to happen on that side of the ball. That was just never. It's a non-negotiable, and we would have policed that ourselves. So the fact that it's not getting policed is a
Yeah,
problem.
you're probably talking about, I would think, down the stretch of the Eagle game, right? And down the stretch of the last game against the 49ers, it did seem like they capitulated, kind of like, we'll let you run the ball. They wanted to, it seemed like at the end of the Eagle game, at the end of the 49er game, the defense on the field wanted the game to be over. You know what I mean? And is that the kind of thing you were seeing? Escorting a guy out of bounds, not really blatantly missing a tackle, but just kind of like not putting your body in. There was one with Deonte Banks where the guy just bounced off. I mean, I noticed that, I'd be interested to see what you're saying about lack of effort. I saw like a lack of interest at the end of the Eagle game, like, okay, this game is decided.
Yeah.
They can get 4, 5, 6 yards a pop. We'll tackle them, and then the clock will keep running, and we'll get out of here. And I thought the same thing against the 49ers. It was like, they just okay. Let's just get this game over with. And you're saying that is not acceptable, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, that's a non-negotiable in any sport. Just give effort, right? It's free. It doesn't take any talent. And then you question, right? Because there's a lot of truth to, do guys play for the coach that they're playing for? And right, we wanted to run through a brick wall for Spagnuolo and Dave Merritt on defense and all the great coaches we had on that side of the ball and Tom Coughlin, and just quite frankly for your teammate. The guy next to you is why you wanted to play hard. I just don't see that on that side of the ball. I don't see, grasping at the last straw to make a play and giving that final push of, just running and effort and diving. You just don't see it. And listen, I'm not an idiot. I've seen a lot of football, played a lot of football. I know what it looks like. You know what it looks like. The fans know what it looks like. So again, maybe they're not playing for the coaches. Maybe they don't like. I don't know. Look, there's a lot going on in that building that we don't know about. So it's just been going on for way too long.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, there have been scheme issues where certainly after the Dallas game in week 2, where,
But see,
they just,
Paul, I don't believe in scheme issues. I mean, yes and no, but
well,
like there's still effort. Scheme can, I get it. The NFL coaches are going to, try and out scheme each other, but I just think that even a bad defensive play could work if 11 people are playing with their hair on fire.
yeah,
Just my
here's
opinion.
what I'm,
Scheme's a
don't
cop
get,
out.
well, okay, but yes, overall, yes, but like at the end of the Dallas game where
Oh,
Russell
right.
throws those moon balls, right? At the end of the Dallas game, that was a scheme issue. He had his team back at the sticks, right? Not at the he had his defense lined up like at the 50-yard line, and Dak Prescott literally just had no rush and threw a 20-yard pass to the tight end Ferguson, and they were in field goal range with a guy like
Yeah.
Aubrey. So that was and so they quote unquote played their assignment there. The assignments were wrong on that play. Now the running stuff I'm talking about has nothing to do with scheme. It has to do with what you said, want to and thing. But they lost 2 games this year when they went ahead with 37 seconds to go and with 25 seconds to go. Okay. You must win those games. Against Dallas, they took the lead and the game went into overtime. Against the Broncos, we remember that unbelievable historic collapse, giving up 33 points in the fourth quarter. But Jaxson Dart leads them down the field and they go ahead, right? They go
Yeah.
ahead. He makes an unbelievable pass to Wandale on 4th and 19. They get a good pass interference penalty on a perfect Dart
Yeah.
throw, and they go ahead, and the game should be over. And he doesn't have Dexter Lawrence on the field on first down, which he admitted was a mistake. So to me, Shane Bowen his fingerprints are on those 2 losses,
Yeah.
but not on the things you're talking about unless they just don't believe in him anymore.
Yeah, and then I'll go one step further on the lead thing. Like we were up 14 zip against the Saints.
Yeah.
First 2 drives, 14-0. I mean, 2 scores typically in the NFL. It seems like that has changed, right? Remember 5, 6, 10 years ago, you're up by 2 scores, you never lose. And now, for whatever reason, 2 scores, and even in the fourth quarter, is not a safe lead. I don't care what team you're on. I don't know what's changed in the game schematically or call wise on defense. Why are teams losing with double-digit leads in the fourth quarter? We'll have to talk about that at the end of the season, but it's been fascinating to watch. And no lead is safe, obviously, with the Giants, and that's what's frustrating about this team. Then you're talking about the games go. Then you're 4-4, right? We're not even having this conversation probably. Everything's hunky dory. 4-4 is a respectable record at this point in the season. You hate to lose some players that they've lost, but seems like they may get some guys healthy back in the back end. And the front has been good, but nobody else. So, yeah, it's a bunch of what ifs on this 2025 Giants football team.
Yeah, I mean there are, right. They should have won those 2 games, but they didn't, and that has been
Yeah.
sort of a pattern of not finishing games. So I'm not looking at 2-7 and saying, boy, they're a really good 2-7. They're not. They're not a really good. That's not. They're just
No.
not the case. And the last, I said after they beat the Eagles, you watched the Thursday night game when they beat the Eagles, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Jaxson Dart played great. They finally they kicked the Eagles' butts, really. After that game, what were you thinking?
Well, I thought they had found something just as a team, right? I never in a million years thought they're going to go be 10-7,
Mhm.
11-6, right? I just never thought that. I know this team was a little bit flawed, and Jaxson Dart did not light up the stats that night, right? He played good, and it was just fun for us to see a quarterback look the part because we've been yearning for one for a while. So, but I did not get all super giddy that we beat the Eagles. Now, I was happy we beat the Eagles because we never beat the Eagles, but at the same time, I did not think they were going on some magical playoff run. Did you?
No. I mean, what I looked at it is, look, and I know the Eagles on the rematch, were pissed at the Giants. Look how much they
Oh
celebrated. They
yeah,
did,
yeah, yeah.
Scadaboo rips off his shirt in the post game interviews with Jaxson there. Look, that was a catharsis. As you know, they never beat the Eagles. They never win on prime time. Was it 34-17? They shut Saquon Barkley down.
Yeah.
They just checked every box. So I get it. A young team. Jaxson Dart, I think at that point was what, 2-1 as a starter. I looked at it and said, okay, this is great. They're starting to win some games at home, right? They beat an undefeated Chargers team before that. So Jaxson Dart was 2-0 at home. And I looked at that and said, okay, now they go on the road and they play they go on the road and they play the Broncos in Denver, and then they play the Eagles again. So let's see what happens the next time they're back home, right? The next time they're back home against the 49ers, what are we looking at? And then, but in the third quarter and early fourth quarter in Denver, right? When Jaxson Dart throws a pass that's deflected into the hands of Theo Johnson for a touchdown, and they go up 26-8 with 10 minutes to go. I looked at and I said, you know what? Holy smokes. This is not a bad team right now, and they got a break, right? They got a break with a deflection.
Yeah.
Jaxson Dart comes right down the field. They were dominating the defense. The defense looked the best it looked in years, flying around, destroying Bo Nix. I think they're going to win at 26-8. Okay. I
Oh
really do.
yeah, yeah.
I really think they're going to win. And I said, they're dominating the Broncos after dominating the Eagles. This is a pretty good team right now. And then we know what happened. It all went to hell. We know that. So, and that compromised everything. So, I want to ask you, because we've done these podcasts.
But isn't it? Let me
Yeah,
add on
go
to
ahead.
that point right there.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how mental this league is? Mental, like when I say mental, I mean that. Like the confidence they were playing with in Denver, right? Because they had just smacked the Eagles around. And then they play for 3 quarters, really, really, really good football because they're up here mentally. Then they get taken down a notch. You get kicked in the you know what in Denver. They carry it over into the next game. They carry it over into the next game. So it's so mental. Like, so to your point, there is some talent on this team. And when it's confident and playing well, it can. But again, that is coaching, Paul. It is the coach's jobs to give these kids confidence that they can go out and beat people and they have a good scheme for that week. And that is what is not happening.
Yeah, I mean, look, at that point in the Denver game, I'm writing a column. I can send you the 600 words I had written about the defense, rising up. I mean, don't forget it was 19-0 after 3 quarters.
Oh
And
yeah,
they
really
were
good.
Bobby Oak, they were flying all over the place. They were flying all over the place. And needless to say, those 600 words did not ever get printed anywhere, because a story about the defense rising up became a story about a historic collapse. I mean, giving up 33 points in a quarter is not easy. I mean, it's just not easy to do.
No. If you did it
It's
just
not easy to do. Yeah, I mean,
mathematically, there's no way it's easy. And then I had the absolute moment of cursed moments of all time as after I believe Theo scored to put us up. What was that, 18 or something, or maybe more? And there
26 to
was
8.
eight,
Yeah.
and no, what, 8 minutes left or something?
10,
It had
10. Yeah.
some crazy vibes of the Philly game, the Matt Dodge game. But also, I look at my wife and I'm on the couch right back here, and I say, "There's no way in hell we're losing this game." And that was my words that I ate the rest of the night. And after each score, she kept saying, "See, you shouldn't have said that. You shouldn't have said that." And she's absolutely right. But other reasons. But I felt, to your point, after the Philly game, after this kind of showing, I'm like, maybe this team is real.
Yeah. Wrong.
Yep,
Now,
wrong.
yeah, you played your career with the Giants with Eli Manning, right? You never got hurt. Solid as a rock. You're a friend of his. Okay, so you know what that looks like. Since we've been podcast, teammates for a few years before this, it was Daniel Jones, right? Only Daniel Jones, and then after he got hurt, a smattering of DeVito and Drew Lock and Tyrod Taylor, that kind of thing. But it was mostly we spent a lot of time talking about Daniel Jones, and you were an
Yeah.
advocate of his at some point, and then you kind of realize that maybe it's not it, maybe it's coaching, but we know where that went. We don't have to relitigate that. So you mentioned about Jaxson Dart and what you like about him, but as a player now, not as just a fan, um, are your boys into Jaxson Dart? You know what I mean? I mean, they've been longing for it. What is it about Jaxson Dart maybe that an average fan doesn't see, that you're looking at the screen and saying, you think they got this right?
Um, First of all, play matters, right? He can
Mhm.
play. But you see the level of respect and focus on him when he's in the huddle. People listen when he talks. He's very measured and mature at the podium. I watch stuff like that.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
and he loves ball. He cares. Like people can make fun of him for crying on the sideline or maybe having his head down and being emotional about a loss. That matters to me because I know he cares. So there's a lot to like about this young man. He loves football. You just, him and Scadaboo, you get a sense that, you know, it's hard in today's world to find guys who absolutely love football because a lot of people just love what football gives them. But these two young men, they love ball. Like you can just tell, like they would do it for free. It looks like to me, uh, if and play in the NFL, but they just love ball, and I see it. It comes through the TV, and a lot to like for and we'll see where Scadaboo ends up with the injury. That was a nasty thing that happened, but listen, for me being a Giants guy out in Kansas City, I just had people around town telling me how much they can't wait to watch the Giants play. Like that's Paul. That's never happened in a decade of living here ever. People always, they know me as the Giants guy, and man, I love that Scadaboo and Dart. Love that Scadaboo and Dart. That's all you heard around town. And so that was kind of exciting. I said, yeah, look, they're fun to watch. And, I'm glad we got them. And so that is cool. So I know that what they're doing is resonating not only with Giants fans, but with NFL fans.
It's funny, the Scadaboo injury. Then I want to move on to kicking and,
Yeah.
and your favorite topic. I heard a doctor say that it's actually, look, it was gruesome, but he said it's actually not a terrible injury to come back from. It's not. He said and he actually said that if the Giants are in the playoffs 10, 11 weeks from now, he could conceivably come back. So he said he should be fine next year, which is amazing considering his ankle was turned the wrong way. But
Well,
he
let's
said
ask
that
that doctor how many of those he's had for it not to be that bad. It looks visually, it's always right. It's the Alex Smith.
yes,
We can go down the
yes.
list. We've seen them in the basketball ones are really gnarly in the courts.
All right, Lawrence, you knew at some point in the show we would have to transition to your favorite topic, one that we've discussed many times, probably too much for some people, but we have to get to the kicking game. And look, I want to ask you because what's going on with Graham Gano is a little or a lot unusual. Okay, let me ask you
Yeah.
a couple of quick questions, and then we'll get to Graham. Okay, how many times when you kicked in the NFL, right, in a game, was there another kicker active with you? Ever?
Never.
Never.
Oh
Okay,
wait, I
so
apologize. Wait. Yeah, one time. Uh, NFC, what was that? The divisional round against the Eagles. Remember when John Carney was in town
yeah.
uh, and had a great season after my injury in the summer. I was healthy by the start of the season, but John was kicking so well they kept him, and it was actually a really good year for me in terms of learning from a veteran. But having said that, that playoff game, which I still gives me nightmares that I didn't get a chance to kick those field goals in that playoff game because that was the single best team I've ever been on. But to answer, I got long winded there.
Yeah, that's
That
okay.
playoff game, I was active with John Carney, and that's the only time that's ever happened.
Okay, but it's very unusual. So,
But that was a distance thing. That was not an injury thing. That was purely Lawrence, you kick off, and then maybe do some longer field goals, which we know didn't happen in that playoff game.
I get it. And Carney was going to take the
And
intermediate field
he
goal.
missed two field goals in that game, short like in the 40s, right? So not to bring up old stuff, but yeah.
No, no, I get it. But I'm saying because there's been a lot of discussion because Graham, 3 times in the last few years, he has either gone into a game, on the injury report and then gotten hurt in the game, right? We remember, Washington, I
Yeah.
guess, right? He comes in with a
Yeah.
groin and he kicks off the opening kickoff. He chases the guy down on a long return, hurts his hamstring. The Giants are left without a kicker, right? This year, he got hurt. The Giants are left without a kicker. The punter has to kick, now he's on the injury report this week. I don't know how severe it is with a neck. Okay, neck for a kicker. Okay, maybe that's better than a groin or a hamstring. So I mean, is this right criticism that the Giants either stuck with Graham, who's 38 years old and he has these injury issues, or that they go into a game, they have to activate two kickers because in case Graham gets hurt, because he has done that before, we need another kicker. Because you just don't see two kickers being active. So where are you on that? Because you're inside that debate.
Okay, so I will give the team the benefit of the doubt in some regards that when Graham says he's healthy on Saturday, right? Like I'm thinking of the hamstring injury, the groin injury, the coaches, based on his history, potentially now you do it, but like that's not their fault that Graham got hurt in pregame. It's not. I don't know. Look, I tend to trust the kicker, but again, what I would have done this season is no disrespect, and I love Graham Gano, and he knows that. He's a friend of mine. I would have cut him because of the money, and then I just think there's been too much injury history with him over the last 2 or 3 seasons, and I have a great deal of respect for him. I want to make sure that's known. But again, from a business perspective, I definitely would have gotten a young guy. There was a lot of young talent in this draft. And guys that are capable, and you're seeing it with some young guys playing really well in the league right now. So I probably would have went that route strictly from a business perspective, not necessarily. Look, we know what Graham is capable of. He can hit it. He can still hit it at his age.
Well, now I totally see that take. Now I would just push back with this. I think there were people in that building that did not want to give Brian Daboll on a very important year for him, right, to win a rookie kicker. Okay, because rookie quarterbacks, rookie kickers. Graham is, if healthy, he is very solid, right? So I get your point. I get your point. And if you get the right rookie kicker, or maybe not a rookie kicker, maybe you just sign a guy who's bounced around a little bit, and you put him in and he's good, then you're fine. But yes, I mean, their kicking issues. Graham missed 4 games, right? Comes back and misses a 45-yard field goal. Now you've missed 45-yard field goals in your career. I get it. He said I hit it well. The wind didn't take it. I did not like so much that he told my colleague Ryan Dunleavy after the game that I made all my kicks in warmups.
Yeah, those don't count.
Those don't count.
Those don't count. Those are most guys do make all their kicks in pregame.
Like nobody's rushing you, right? You're kicking, you have time, you put it down.
I've had pre-games where I made 50% of them too, and also went 3 for 3 in the game. So it's actually a warm-up. That's all you're out there doing. Some people will be, he missed half his kicks in pregame. Well, thank God no one watched my pre-games because I was not always the best.
Real quick, just as an aside, the pregame at the Ice Bowl 2 at Lambeau Field. Did you have a pregame that day?
We did. We were able to fit in about 4 or 5 kicks. I think I did make all of them because we never got past like 35 yards because Jeff couldn't catch the football. So my pregame that day was limited to 5 or 6 reps because Jeff Eagles' hands were frozen and we just went with it. So yeah.
A couple of things. Did you think that you would not live to see the day, but your career high, I looked up twice, was 53, right? 2006 with the Chiefs, 2010 with the Giants, right?
I have a 59-yarder in Canada, CFL. So,
well, it's Canada. It's a different exchange rate.
Counts. Listen, it still counts.
It's a different exchange rate. It's like the economy.
It still counts. 59 yards up there is 59. It was not meters; it was yards. So that counts.
The field's too wide there.
It is wide.
Okay. I'll give you that. Okay, but
longest professional kick 59. Yes.
When you played, every time a guy hit a 50-something yard field goal, it was eye-opening, right? Wow, the guy hit a 51. The guy hit a 52. Lawrence hit a 53. Now it is not so eye-opening. Give me a couple of sentences on Cam Little hitting a 68-yard field goal to set the NFL record.
Well, it's a little ridiculous. And what I've noticed now when following the stats in the NFL, that they now have a 60+ column. That's never happened.
Yeah.
Go to NFL.com. It's actually hilarious. I saw it the other night. It used to stop at 50+. Now there's an extra column on these statistics for 60+. That's how insane it's gotten. I will say this. The balls are incredible.
Yes.
The guys
Yes.
get them the whole week now. I think it's actually unfair. But I can make a football, and anyone in my era, David Akers and Shane Graham, and some of us still chit chat and shoot text together and say, we can make a football go 10 to 12 yards further if we got it the whole week. So that's what you're seeing.
Can you explain what that means? Because I don't think fans know the footballs you kicked versus the footballs they kick now.
So real quick, don't want to bore you. So early 2000s, the refs, you were like, enough of these kickers hitting these, touchbacks and whatever, balls flying all over the place. And so guys used to break in the footballs and have them the whole week and say, hey, here's the ball I want to actually kick in the game. So the refs started bringing in the balls. The ref would bring in the balls the day of the game. 1 through 12 are numbered. Typically 1 through 3 would get rubbed down by your equipment staff. Your equipment staff had 30 minutes to break in the balls. Your equipment staff, one guy from your team and one guy from the other team pregame. So they'd rub them down and get them somewhat respectable to where they're not as hard to kick. But a brand new football is very, very difficult to kick. So anyway, now fast forward 2023, 24, 25, these guys, the kickers have the balls all week. They're in their possession. They can go home and sleep with them on their head, rub them down, heat them up, rub them down, kick them. And then the sweet spot is the size of an orange, whereas my era, I think the sweet spot was the size of a racquetball, maybe a golf ball, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. Now it's this big. And these things, so you can make a football really move. You absolutely can make it go 10 yards further.
I think that's really interesting.
Seeing that.
I think, look, everyone puts on the TV and sees guys kicking, the ball gets to midfield and they're in field goal range. So that is a great explanation of, they're bigger, stronger.
It's the why.
Why? It's the why. Yes. Okay. Now, do you have any memories of kicking in Chicago in Soldier Field? Which can't be
not great ones. I never kicked poorly there, but I just I didn't like kicking there. Very, very difficult. Long grass, the footing. If there's one place that gave me the heebie-jeebies, it was Soldier Field. I just never, and thank God I only played there twice, I think. Once. I didn't like it. And we played in a really sloppy game, much like this one, Paul. If you'll remember, in 2007, the Magical Super Bowl, we played a Rex Grossman, who then they were pretty good. And it was a December game, if I'm not mistaken, night game. And it was rainy, cold, and wet. And we win. We won the game. But that's, I think, the last time I played there.
See, that's the difference. This, we win. That was the Giants back then. You won more than you lost. You figure out a way to win. All right, that's where the Giants are going this week, to Chicago. Giants can't stop a cold in the run, as you mentioned. Effort. It's not all effort. Some of it's effort. The Bears ran for almost 300 yards last week, so I don't see. Give the fans maybe just a thumbnail of what is there any reason to think the Giants? Joe Flacco threw for 470 yards against the Bears defense. The Bears had a crazy win. They scored in the last, few seconds to beat the Bengals. They scored 47 points. They want to run the ball. Caleb Williams is very talented, not a great quarterback yet, but very talented. They need to run the ball, and and the Giants can't stop the run. So I asked Jaxson Dart, cold, things. He kind of laughed. He said, I'm from Utah. I played high school games in the snow. I'm from Utah.
Yeah. I think people forget that, right? You associate him with USC and all this.
Yes, you would love this guy. Real quick, he went to the same high school as Jim McMahon, right? The former Bears quarterback from Utah. So it says, so somebody asked him yesterday, so is that why you wear a headband? Because of Jim McMahon? Yeah. And Dart goes, no. And then someone asked the next question. He just goes, it just keeps my hair up. It just don't overthink it, guys. I wear a headband because it keeps my hair up.
But isn't it kind of cool that both he and McMahon have this swag about him? But I know they're 40 years apart, but it's still it's pretty cool.
But I think McMahon was a little weirder and stranger. And Jaxson Dart is just, you would have loved him. You would have loved playing with him. You would have loved him because he's He's, and one other thing, I'm getting all over the place here, but when he keeps on saying, I hate to lose, I hate to lose, and then his teammates say it hurts us because we see how much Jaxson hates to lose. My next question is, well, don't you hate to lose just as much? Why is Jaxson Dart hate to lose more than some of these veterans? I think,
but no, that's not true. That's the thing. That's why it's hard to get 53 guys on the same page, because it means more to some guys than it does the others. It's very, very hard. Like I always said, there's some people that love football and some people that love what football gives them. I think 99% of the guys I play with would have played for free, just to wear that uniform and play in that stadium in front of those fans. And I'm not kidding. Now, the money's great. Don't get me wrong, but we had a bunch of dudes, a bunch of dogs that loved football, and that's what each team is trying to come up with. That group, right? Like, it's really hard, as we've seen. The Giants make it look really, really hard.
Really hard. Yes. One last thing before we close. We're on the kicking theme. You have a kicker in your family, right? I will give you 30 or 40 seconds to be a dad and boast about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So one of my twin boys, Jaden, started kicking about a year ago. Didn't really have much film. He had a real bad injury his senior year of high school as well. So he is at Troy, where I played, and I'll tell you what, he's put on 18 pounds. He's been there since May. Couldn't be prouder of him. He's doing unbelievable things. I think he's better than I am at this age, so pretty excited to see his future. He is redshirting right now. They've got a really good senior kicker in front of him, but the redshirt's been great for him. Troy's bowl eligible. We've been to 4 games. It's been fun to see friends and former teammates that I played with back in Troy. So I'm kind of rekindling my romance with Troy University again. So it's good to be back. And then it's pretty surreal watching your son put on that uniform. So proud of him. He's doing a good job. We'll see where he's at next year. I'm pretty happy for where he's at right now, and hopefully he can do cool things in college.
Well, he's got a great mentor as a father, as a kicker, I'm sure as a friend. I'm not sure I can hold out long enough to cover him. Okay.
No.
Yeah. I don't know if I can hold out that long. I'll try, but I don't know if I can hold out that long. So I may not be able to interview him as a Giant or a.
Well, let's get the Giants here on a run here. We've got the quarterback. We've got a back. We've got some pieces. They're not that far off. I know that sounds crazy, but I really don't. Once you find that guy, right, everything else should fall into place. And we didn't even talk about poor Malik Neighbors, like heartbreaking for him. Another guy who hates to lose, so you've got 3 on offense. Andrew Thomas hates to lose too. He doesn't even lose a rep, never mind the games, but he doesn't lose reps. That's how good he is. So,
well, you know what? Let's leave it there, because that is the true Lawrence Tynes coming out. At the end of the day, you're trying to find a silver lining and trying to explain how the Giants can win. And that is what you and your generation of Giants was all about. We can be disappointed. We can rip on them. We can say it's this and it's that, but then let's go on a run. Let's figure out a way. So that's great. Lawrence, I can't thank you enough for being back on the Blue Rush podcast. You bailed me out. You gave us a lot of.
I was only your 6th phone call, but I'm glad to fill in as number 6.
Well, no, it was T. I was going alphabetically. So
so I was even way further down the line. Okay,
you were down the list. Yeah. It was either like TYR, TYN. Yeah, no, it was going to be Tynes and then Tyree. So that's So
okay.
You just got in under the wire there. No, but seriously,
Perfect.
Thank you. You made
You're
us
welcome.
Smarter. And that's it for week 10 of the Blue Rush podcast from the New York Post. You can subscribe to this thing on YouTube and Spotify, and I don't know what else. Lawrence Tynes is,
Instagram.
His Instagram. You can do it on whatever, Nickelodeon and wherever you get podcasts. I don't even know where you get podcasts. 10 years ago, I didn't even know what a podcast was, and now I'm doing this on a podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe, like, love, whatever you do on podcasts. For Paul Schwartz and my special guest, Lawrence Tynes, thank you for watching.